In the heart of the galaxy, inside a hall so large that whole starships could float within it, the Galactic Assembly was in session. It was a place of pride for hundreds of species, a stage where the strongest spoke and the weaker ones listened. The chamber shimmered with colors from alien lights, voices overlapping in many tongues, yet all carried one thing in common that day: mockery. The target of their laughter was Earth, the blue planet resting quietly at the edge of a spiral arm, far from the shining core of galactic power. Delegates from towering insectoid races tapped their claws against the floor as they ridiculed the fragility of human bones. Amphibian diplomats croaked with amusement about how humans still used fire and steel when others wielded energy and plasma. Even the elder species, those who had seen empires rise and fall, smiled thinly at the idea of humans ever standing equal to them. To the galaxy, Earth was a curiosity, not a power. At the far edge of the chamber, among the shadows, a few human representatives sat. They did not laugh. Their faces were calm, though inside their hearts pounded with anger. They had come because Earth was now invited to the assembly, but instead of respect, they had been given ridicule. The speeches had gone on for hours, each alien leader adding their voice to the chorus of mockery. They called humans reckless, too emotional, too violent, too fragile. They compared Earth's armies to children's games and Earth's technology to scraps of ancient history. Yet the humans said nothing. They listened. They watched. They waited. Then, as the mocking laughter reached its peak, the lights in the hall flickered. At first, it seemed like a minor failure in the systems, but then a sound cut through the chamber. A long, rising tone, sharp enough to silence every voice. Across the assembly's great display walls, a signal appeared in old code, one so ancient that most delegates had to search their archives to understand it. The humans understood instantly. Their bodies went still, their faces pale. It was a distress signal, but not any ordinary one. It was Earth's old emergency beacon, a call for help that had not been used in centuries. And it was not one beacon. Hundreds of them lit up across the stars, flaring like sparks in the void. The chamber erupted into confusion. The insectoids clicked in alarm, the amphibians hissed, the avian species fluttered their wings nervously. Impossible, one delegate shouted. Earth has no colonies beyond its system, another argued. Then who is sending these signals? Asked a third. They turned toward the human delegation, expecting answers. But the humans did not answer. They sat rigid, their eyes fixed on the beacons glowing on the displays. The laughter was gone. Now only silence and unease filled the hall. The assembly's overseer, a towering crystalline being, demanded clarity. Explain this, it said, voice ringing like glass. But the lead human only whispered, almost to himself, they were never gone. His words were too quiet for most to hear, but those who did felt a cold shiver run through them. The display shifted again, showing coordinates of the nearest beacon. It pulsed like a heartbeat, steady and waiting. The alien leaders tried to dismiss it at first. Some said it was a human trick, a desperate attempt to win respect by faking signals. Others suggested it was old wreckage, malfunctioning machinery from long-lost probes. Yet as they argued, the signals grew stronger, sharper, undeniable. More and more beacons lit up, spreading across sectors where no human ship had ever officially traveled. It was as if the galaxy itself had hidden these places, waiting for this very moment to reveal them. The humans remained silent. Every second their silence became heavier, like a storm cloud over the chamber. Finally, one alien demanded, if these are your beacons, then why do they appear where no humans have lived? The lead human lifted his head slowly. His eyes were tired, but behind them burned something the others could not name. He did not answer the question directly. He only said, because you were never watching. And we never asked you to. The words fell into the chamber like a weight, pressing down on every creature. For the first time, the laughter that had filled the assembly was gone, replaced by a feeling most of them had not felt in generations: fear. The beacons pulsed across the stars, one after another, like a chain of warnings set long ago. No one could deny them now. Something was out there, something the humans knew but had never spoken of. The assembly, once full of noise and pride, sat in silence, watching the lights spread like fire across the galaxy. And in that silence, every delegate realized the same terrible truth. The humans were not the joke. They were the ones holding back something that no one else dared to face. The signal of the first beacon spread across the assembly like a cold wind in a silent graveyard. Its coordinates burned clear on the central display, a lonely world spinning on the edge of a forgotten sector. To most of the galaxy it was nothing more than an abandoned husk, a planet with no value, left untouched for centuries. Yet the beacon pulsed from its surface, calling out again and again with the strength of something that had not forgotten its purpose. The assembly could not ignore it. A fleet was quickly dispatched. Alien warships of every design, sleek, spined, glowing, slipped through the dark between stars, engines burning like meteors. Most of the delegates stayed behind, but many tuned into the live transmission. They were curious, amused even, still thinking this would end with the exposure of some human trick. Some joked that the humans had buried fireworks in distant rocks to make themselves seem greater. The laughter had returned, though weaker now, nervous at its edges. The humans, however, did not laugh. They watched the transmission in silence, their expressions grave. A few alien commanders noticed and felt unease, though they did not say it aloud. As the fleet drew closer, the transmission sharpened. The planet came into view, a dark sphere with clouds of dust circling its dead surface. No signs of life showed, no glowing cities, no green landscapes. It was a grave world, silent and forgotten. Yet the beacon pulsed brighter, guiding them to a location on the surface. The landing teams prepared. The insectoid soldiers adjusted their plasma rifles, their mandibles clacking with anticipation. The reptilian warriors hissed about claiming whatever treasures were buried there. A few even laughed about finding nothing more than human bones. But when the first shuttle touched the surface, their laughter died. What rose before them was not natural. Massive walls of black stone stretched into the horizon, scarred with burns, deep cracks, and marks of weapons fire. Towers jutted up like broken teeth, their tops shattered by some long-past battle. The fortress was human, though the aliens did not want to believe it. The design was crude, by galactic standards, steel and stone instead of energy fields and crystal. But it had endured. It had endured centuries of storms, asteroids, and the silence of the void. And most haunting of all, the beacon sat at its heart, glowing with steady light as though it had been waiting for them all this time. The soldiers spread through the ruins. The ground was littered with rusted weapons, bones locked in eternal positions of battle, and scorch marks where energy blasts had melted stone. Some walls still bore painted flags, faded but clear enough to recognize. They were human insignia, symbols of Earth's armies, ones no alien should ever have seen on a world humanity was not supposed to know. The amphibian officers stared at them in disbelief. Impossible, one muttered. Humans never came here. This planet was abandoned before they even built their first starship. Inside the fortress, the teams discovered chambers filled with records. The writings were simple human code, but encrypted, hidden behind layers of defense. Machines, old and rusted but still functional, stirred as they approached. Screens blinked awake, showing fragments of battles, broken images of soldiers in combat. The recordings showed humans fighting not each other, but something else. The enemy in the images was blurred, monstrous, almost like shadows moving in the dark. The humans fought desperately, their faces scarred and exhausted, but their eyes burned with defiance. They had held this place to the last breath. The commanders in orbit demanded answers. Who did they fight? When did this happen? Why did no one know? The humans back in the assembly said nothing. They only watched the images, their hands clenched tightly, as if remembering a truth they had kept hidden too long. Suddenly, the recordings shifted to a final message. A human officer, covered in dust and blood, stared into the camera. His voice was weak but steady. If you are seeing this, then we held them here long enough. The beacon will guide you, but know this: you are already too late. They never stopped hunting. And neither did we. The message ended, leaving the chamber in silence. The alien soldiers were shaken. For the first time in memory, they felt the weight of something beyond their understanding. These ruins were not a trick. They were not fireworks or lies. They were evidence of battles the galaxy had never seen, fought by a species everyone had dismissed as weak. If the humans had truly stood alone here, then what had they been fighting? And how many other beacons would lead to more battlefields like this? Back in the assembly, the laughter had vanished completely. The beacons across the galaxy continued to pulse, each one a steady heartbeat in the void. The overseer demanded that the humans explain themselves, but the lead human only answered with a single line. We never asked for help. We only asked to be left alone. But now you see we were never alone. The chamber froze. Every alien realized what the words meant. If the humans had fought wars on worlds no one even knew they had reached, then the enemy they fought might still be out there. The beacons were not calls for aid, they were warnings. Warnings that something terrible had survived, and that humanity had been the only line holding it back. The assembly's pride and mockery dissolved into fear, because if that was true, then the galaxy owed its very survival to the one race it had laughed at. The discovery of the first fortress changed everything. The assembly that had once mocked Earth now sat restless, its grand chamber filled with unease. Delegates whispered in their strange tongues, eyes flicking nervously toward the human representatives who remained silent. But silence could not erase the truth. The beacon had lit, the ruins had spoken, and the records of forgotten battles were undeniable. The galaxy demanded answers, and if humans would not give them, then the beacons themselves would. Within days, fleets were sent to follow the other signals. Each one marked a different corner of the stars, far from known human space, scattered across regions the galaxy considered lifeless and unimportant. Ships arrived one after another, and what they found spread fear like a plague. Every beacon led to a battlefield. Some were fortresses built of stone and steel, scorched black by weapons fire. Others were graveyards of starships drifting silently in orbit, their hulls carved with marks of violence. On one barren moon, they found trenches dug deep into the rock, filled with skeletons wearing human armor. On another world, they uncovered caverns where humans had fought underground wars, their walls scorched by explosives. The images flooded back to the assembly. Aliens who had once laughed at human fragility now stared at their screens in disbelief. This cannot be, one reptilian delegate hissed. These battles are too far, too many. They had no fleets to reach so far. But there it was, evidence stacked higher than their doubts. Humans had not only traveled beyond their known borders, they had fought wars there, and wars that no one else had seen. The recovered records told fragments of a story. They spoke of an enemy the humans had faced, but the descriptions were vague, almost intentionally obscured. Words like the dark swarm and the endless tide appeared again and again. In one recording, a human captain described creatures that came without warning, that devoured entire colonies in hours. Another record showed a desperate log, we held them for 12 days. No reinforcements came. No one even knows we are here. If this message survives, tell Earth we did not break. The transmission ended with silence, the image of broken bodies lying in the dirt. Every discovery cut deeper into the pride of the assembly. For centuries, they had believed humanity weak, unworthy of respect. Yet here was proof of endurance beyond anything they had imagined. These were not the battles of a fragile race. They were the battles of a people who refused to surrender, even when forgotten, even when abandoned. Some delegates began to whisper to each other in fear. If this enemy still exists, why have we not seen it? If humans fought alone, why did they hide it? Others tried to dismiss the evidence as exaggeration, but the scale of it was too vast. Beacon after beacon showed the same truth: humanity had fought across countless fronts, leaving graves in every corner of the galaxy. The assembly demanded answers again, their voices rising in frustration. What enemy was this? Where is it now? Why did you not warn us? But the human representatives refused to speak. They sat in silence, their faces carved from stone, their eyes filled with shadows of memories too heavy to share. Finally, one alien shouted in rage, "You expect us to believe you fought a war across the stars, and no one noticed?" The lead human looked at him calmly and said, "You never looked. And we never asked you to." The words echoed through the hall like a blade. The fleets continued to investigate. On one ruined world, they found a vast field of alien corpses unlike any species in the assembly. The remains were twisted, insect-like, with jagged limbs and empty sockets for eyes. Their ships, rusted and broken, floated in orbit, filled with claw marks along the walls as if even death had not silenced their fury. The aliens studied the remains in horror. None of them recognized the species. None of them had records of such a foe. It was as if the humans had fought a war with a nightmare the galaxy had forgotten. More recordings were played. In one, a human soldier, his armor cracked and his face streaked with blood, whispered into the recorder. "If you hear this, know that Earth stood. Know that we held the line. They came in numbers without end, and we gave everything. We will not see the dawn, but maybe you will. Remember us." The message cut off, leaving only static. The assembly chamber was silent as it played. Some alien delegates lowered their eyes in shame. Others gripped their claws, their wings, their tendrils, unable to speak. By the time the 10th beacon was investigated, the truth was undeniable. Humanity had not been weak. Humanity had not been idle. While the galaxy laughed at them, humans had fought wars in the shadows, building fortresses where no one looked, spilling blood where no one cared. They had carried a burden no other species even realized existed. And the most terrifying question of all now hung in the assembly like a storm cloud. If humans had fought this enemy for centuries, had they won, or was the enemy still out there, waiting in the dark? The assembly's overseer finally rose, its crystalline body glowing with harsh light. Its voice rang across the hall, hard and commanding. "Humans, you will explain what these battles mean. You will tell us the truth." But the lead human only leaned forward, his voice quiet and steady. "You think the beacons are messages. They are not. They are warnings. And you should have listened long ago." The chamber fell into silence. No one dared to laugh now. No one dared to mock. Because in the silence, in the glow of the pulsing beacons across the galaxy, every alien began to feel it, the sense that something terrible had only been sleeping, and now, because of the lights, it was stirring again. The beacons had burned for days, each one sending its pulse across the stars like a steady heartbeat. The galaxy could no longer look away. Every fleet that followed a signal found the same truth: ruins of human fortresses, battlefields turned to graves, messages left by soldiers who never returned home. The assembly, once loud with laughter, now sat in uneasy silence. Yet even then, many leaders tried to comfort themselves with excuses. Perhaps the war was long past. Perhaps the enemy had been destroyed. Perhaps humans had exaggerated their victories, as some desperate species often did. But deep inside, no one truly believed those excuses. The records were too many. The graves were too real. And then the first report came. It was from the Olarian fleet patrolling the edge of Sector 9. The message was short and broken, but it froze the chamber the moment it played. Unknown contacts. Not human. Swarm patterns detected. They are the voice cut off in static, followed by screams and alarms. The transmission ended abruptly, the last image a flash of claws tearing through steel. For a moment, no one spoke. Then panic rippled through the assembly. Delegates shouted, their voices clashing in a storm of fear. Some demanded fleets to defend their home worlds. Others accused the humans of summoning this threat. But the humans said nothing. Their silence was more terrifying than the screams from the broken message. Within hours, more fleets vanished. Patrols sent to investigate returned fragments of data, shadows moving between stars, ships swarmed and torn apart, colonies silenced overnight. The enemy was not gone. It had never been gone. It had only been waiting. The assembly finally turned fully to the humans. Their questions were no longer mocking, they were desperate. What are they? How long have you fought them? Why did you not tell us? But the lead human only answered with words that chilled them all. We did tell you. Every beacon you ignored, every fortress you mocked, those were our warnings. You only laughed. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned with something the galaxy had not seen before: old grief and older anger. As the galaxy scrambled, fragments of human records were decrypted. The enemy was named in those files, the Vaer. A race of devourers, spreading like plague across systems, consuming everything in their path. No diplomacy, no reasoning, no surrender. They existed only to spread and destroy. The oldest logs spoke of Earth's first contact with them, centuries ago, when humanity was still new to the stars. The Vaer had attacked without warning, crushing colonies before they even had defenses. The galaxy had not noticed because it had not cared. Humans were too far away, too small to matter. So Earth had fought alone. Now the Vaer had returned in force. In the assembly, fear turned to chaos. Some species demanded immediate war, others demanded retreat and isolation. A few even suggested abandoning Earth entirely, letting the humans face the nightmare alone once again. But this time, the humans did not remain silent. The lead human rose, his voice steady but filled with iron. You will not abandon us. Not this time. If you run, you will not escape. We held them at the edges of your galaxy for centuries. We bled for a war that was never ours alone. And now you will fight, or you will burn. The words shook the chamber. The humans had never spoken with such authority before. They had always been quiet, cautious, treated as lesser among the mighty empires. But now they stood tall, their silence broken, their burden revealed. For the first time, the galaxy saw them not as fragile creatures of flesh and bone, but as warriors who had fought in the shadows while others slept safe. Reports kept arriving. The Vaer spread fast, moving like a tide of shadows. Worlds were lost overnight. Fleets sent without human guidance were torn apart within hours. Panic filled every corridor of the assembly. Then the humans revealed what the beacons truly were. They were not only warnings. They were markers, hidden caches of weapons, fleets, and fortresses prepared for this very day. Humanity had built them in secret, scattered across the stars, waiting for the moment when the Vaer would rise again. The galaxy stared in shock as human ships long thought impossible began to emerge from hidden docks. They were old, scarred from countless battles, but they were real. One alien commander dared to ask the question that haunted them all. If you fought them for so long, why did you not destroy them? The human answered with cold honesty. Because we were alone. And because there were too many. His words carried no shame, only truth. Alone, humanity had held the line, but alone they could not finish the war. Now, with the galaxy watching, the question was no longer if the Vaer existed, but whether anyone could stop them. The assembly chambers were silent, every species weighed down by fear and guilt. The humans had fought without recognition, and the galaxy had mocked them for it. Now the laughter was gone, replaced by the steady thrum of the rescue beacons, each one a reminder of battles fought in the dark. And outside, in the black of space, the enemy that humanity had warned of was no longer sleeping. The Vair were awake, and they were coming. And for the first time in its long, arrogant history, the galaxy understood what the humans had been trying to say all along. The beacons were never cries for help. They were the last line of defense. And now they were all that stood between the galaxy and annihilation. The galaxy was trembling. The Vair spread like wildfire across sectors, their dark swarms blotting out entire star systems. Colonies fell silent, patrols vanished, and even mighty fleets were torn apart as though they were nothing more than drifting debris. Fear gripped the assembly, and for the first time in centuries, the great powers of the galaxy admitted they were powerless. Their weapons, their strategies, their pride all failed before the endless tide. But humanity did not tremble. Humanity had seen this before. The assembly demanded a plan, their voices breaking under the weight of panic. "What must we do?" one delegate cried. "Where can we run?" asked another. "Is there any hope?" For long moments, the human representatives remained silent. Then the lead human stood, his voice carrying across the chamber like iron striking stone. "You will not run. There is nowhere to run. You will fight. And we will show you how." The aliens stared, stunned. They were used to giving orders, not taking them from humans. But in that moment, no one argued. There was something in the human's tone, something that came not from arrogance but from bitter experience. The galaxy had theories and records. Humanity had scars. Then the beacons revealed their final secret. They were not only warnings and grave markers. They were doors. Hidden beneath ruined fortresses and abandoned worlds lay vast storage vaults, shipyards buried under rock, and fleets hidden in silence. One by one, as the signals pulsed, human ships began to rise from their hiding places. They were old, many scarred from countless battles, patched and repaired over and over, but they were functional. The alien fleets gasped as hundreds of human warships, ships no one even knew existed, emerged from forgotten shadows. But these ships were not the sleek, elegant vessels of the galaxy. They were brutal, angular, built for endurance rather than beauty. Their hulls bore marks of battles fought in silence. Some carried names etched deep into their steel, names of soldiers and colonies long gone. When the first fleet formed in the void, the assembly finally understood. Humanity had not been weak or idle. Humanity had been preparing. An avian commander dared to ask, voice trembling. "Why did you keep these hidden? Why not call for aid sooner?" The human's reply was cold. "Because when we called, no one came. When we bled, no one cared. We asked for nothing. But now the Vair rise again, and this time, you cannot pretend they are not real." His words cut like blades, and the assembly fell silent, shame heavy in the air. The humans wasted no time. Orders spread through their hidden networks, fleets converging on sectors under attack. Alien ships joined them, unsure but desperate. For the first time, the galaxy fought under human command. The difference was immediate. Where alien fleets had scattered and been destroyed, the humans fought with precision. They knew the enemy's patterns, the way the swarms moved, the weaknesses buried in their endless tide. They struck like blades at the right moments, sacrificing ships not out of panic, but with grim purpose. The aliens watched in awe as the humans turned battles that seemed hopeless into victories bought with blood and fire. In one system, a coalition fleet of 3 alien races had been surrounded, trapped between Vair swarms. They braced for death, only to see human ships arrive from the dark, their guns roaring with brutal fury. The humans broke the swarm, carving a path for the survivors. When the battle was over, the aliens expected celebration. Instead, the humans only said, "Get back in formation. The war has only begun." Their voices carried no joy, only the weight of those who had fought too long to celebrate survival. News of human victories spread quickly. Worlds that once mocked Earth now whispered the name with reverence. Delegates who had laughed at humans only weeks before now listened in silence as they gave commands. Humanity had become something the galaxy had not expected, not just soldiers, but leaders. They had carried the burden alone, and now they demanded that the galaxy share it. Still, not every species was willing. Some resisted, clinging to old pride. "We will not take orders from a race of primitives," one delegate declared. The human turned to him, eyes dark. "Then you will die first. And when your worlds burn, remember who held the line for centuries while you mocked us." No one spoke after that. As the war spread, more hidden fleets rose from the shadows, more fortresses awakened, and more truths came to light. Humanity had planned for this war long ago. They had known the Vaer would return, and they had prepared caches of weapons, ships, and soldiers across the galaxy. The beacons were never meant to summon help. They were signals to awaken what humanity had hidden, to gather the scattered defenses they had built in secret. The Assembly, once the highest authority, now found itself following Earth. Human commanders stood at the front of every major fleet, their orders precise and merciless. They did not fight for glory, and they did not fight for thanks. They fought because they always had. And for the first time, the galaxy understood the true meaning of the beacons. They were not just cries of warning. They were proof of sacrifice. Proof that humanity had been the wall between the galaxy and destruction. And as the first major victories came, as the Vaer were pushed back step by step, one truth became clear to all. Humanity had never been weak. Humanity had never been small. They were the shield that had protected the galaxy when no one else would. Now the shield had become a sword. And under their command, the galaxy would either learn to fight or face extinction together. The war reached its breaking point. The Vaer were no longer just a shadow creeping through the forgotten corners of the galaxy. They were everywhere now, their fleets spreading like a sickness, blotting out stars as they advanced. Entire systems fell in a single night. Colonies were turned to silence. Even the proudest empires of the Assembly trembled, their fleets broken and scattered. The galaxy had never known fear like this. But humanity had. The humans did not break. Their fleets, scarred and battered, fought on with a ruthless precision born from centuries of surviving alone. They knew the enemy's patterns, the way the swarms circled, the way they feigned retreat before striking harder. And for the first time in history, the rest of the galaxy fought under human command. Aliens who once mocked them now followed their orders, their ships moving in formation beside human warships, their lives bound to strategies carved in blood long ago. The assembly chamber, once filled with laughter, now stood as a war council. Holographic maps burned with red markers of lost systems. The enemy was moving toward the core. If they reached it, the galaxy would not survive. Delegates shouted, voices cracking with fear, but the humans did not raise theirs. The lead human spoke calmly, each word like steel. "This is where we stop them. Not tomorrow, not next cycle. Now." And so the final stand was prepared. The beacons pulsed brighter than ever, summoning every hidden fleet, every buried fortress, every last weapon humanity had hidden away for centuries. From barren moons, from forgotten planets, from drifting wrecks, ships emerged, human warships with scars from battles fought in silence. They gathered at a single point, a wall of steel and fire waiting for the storm. The aliens, too, assembled their fleets, though their hands shook and their voices faltered. It was humanity who stood at the front. Then the sky went dark. The Vaer came in numbers beyond imagination. Their ships were not elegant, they were nightmares of jagged edges, living machines fused with flesh, swarming like locusts across the void. They poured into the system like an endless tide, their sheer numbers blotting out the stars. For a moment, even the bravest alien hearts quailed. But the humans did not flinch. They had seen this before. And they had prepared for this moment their entire lives. The first shots tore across the void, bright lines of plasma and steel. Human ships led the charge, cutting into the swarm with merciless fire. Alien fleets followed, their commanders listening to human orders, striking when told, retreating when signaled. The void became a storm of destruction. Ships burned, soldiers died, the enemy pressed forward without fear. But for every ship the Vair consumed, 2 more fell to human guns. On the assembly's grand display, the battle unfolded like a nightmare. Aliens gasped as they watched humans fight with a ferocity they had never imagined. They did not fight to survive. They fought to win, no matter the cost. Ships rammed into enemy clusters, detonating themselves to break the swarm. Squadrons flew into hopeless battles, not for glory but to buy seconds for their comrades. Humanity bled without hesitation, and in their sacrifice, the galaxy began to understand the true meaning of the beacons. The battle raged for hours. Entire fleets were wiped out. Planets in the system burned. But slowly, impossibly, the tide began to shift. The humans had predicted every move, every pattern of the swarm. They struck at the command nodes hidden within the Vair fleets, shattering the enemy's coordination. For the first time, the endless tide faltered. And in that pause, humanity struck with everything. The largest of the hidden fortresses awakened. From deep within a shattered moon, a weapon rose, a colossal cannon humanity had built generations ago, meant for this final day. Its shot cut through the swarm like lightning, splitting the enemy in half. The galaxy watched in silence as the Vair recoiled, their endless confidence broken. The humans pressed harder, driving them back with relentless fire, their ships forming a spear that pierced the heart of the swarm. When the final command node was destroyed, the Vair fleet broke apart. The endless tide, once unstoppable, scattered into chaos. Some fled into the void, others collapsed in flames. The humans did not celebrate. They knew this was not the end. The Vair would return, someday, somewhere. But for now, the galaxy had been saved. When the battle was over, silence filled the assembly. No one laughed at Earth anymore. No one dared to mock. They had seen the truth with their own eyes. Humanity had been the wall standing between the galaxy and annihilation for centuries. Without them, everything would have already been ash. The lead human stood before the assembly one last time. His voice was steady, his words simple. You thought us weak. You thought us small. But when the darkness came, it was us who held the line. Remember this day. Remember who fought for you when you did not fight for us. Because the Vair are not gone. And when they return, if you forget, then the galaxy will fall. The chamber was silent. Not a clock licked, not a wing shifted, not a voice dared to rise. The galaxy had stood still, united by a single truth. Humanity was no longer the race they laughed at. Humanity was the race they would follow, because in the darkest hour, when all hope was gone, it was the humans who lit the beacons, and it was the humans who stood unbroken. And from that day forward, the galaxy knew a truth it would never forget. The beacons were not warnings of weakness. They were proof of strength. Proof of sacrifice. Proof that when the stars turned dark, it would always be humanity who answered first.